This is Modern Gaming Culture. This series will attempt to highlight the phenomenon of PC, console, and mobile gaming and bring to light all of its phenomenal aspects. Let's take a dive together into the world of modern gaming and take apart its structure. Now, here's your host, Rotimi Osagi. All right, this is Modern Gaming Culture. This episode 35. Modern Gaming Culture, episode 2 of Team Profile series for Set I. Well, not necessarily Set I. Team Profiles, VGC type profiles. This episode is going to be about Set F, I believe. Set F is the format where you can play. Yeah, it's the format where you can play a whole bunch of stuff from Kid Akami, from Teal Mask, the Teal Mask DLC, um, and Indigo Disc DLC following shortly after. So this episode, and forgive me, for technical snags. But yeah, so gonna be covering this team right here. Leave. This is Set F legal. Set F, pretty sure you could just play, yeah, because that was a format where they were playing like hands, flutter main, all together. That nonsense. That's the set format they're playing right now on the circuit. They just finished with Set H, which I'm definitely sure is the pretty much Indico Disc and Teal Mask with no legendaries. That's pretty much just like the standard no legendary format for Scarlet and Violet with the DLC included. And then this is without Indigo Disc, I believe, and still Teal Mask. If I'm not mistaken. Because there's like Urshifu and stuff in that format, so I'm pretty sure it is. But yeah, so pretty unorthodox for Set F because Urshifu and all that stuff. We have a lot of Urshifu answers, right? Generally, obviously, it's going to be Rapid Strike since it breaks, and then it's stronger in the rain too, since it breaks sashes. And so, and sort of just like an aside, complete aside, and then again, for anybody who's made it this far, right? Congratulations, right? But for the rest of us, for those I'm trying to reach, all that stuff, yeah. So, um, you know, Urshifu is a type of Pokemon where it's similar to kind of League of Legends with Gwen, right? Gwen has basically been sort of taking the place of Yorick, for example. There's quite other few kind of variables that are similar to it, but as a character, you have Gwen and Yorick, right? Gwen has basically just been added to the League of Legends mythos of like no counterplay characters. Originally it was Yorick. Yorick basically how he did it before he got reworked, is he could basically just make another champion, literally. So he would basically press his ult on you. I think it was a dot. And it did like 15%. It did like 25% max health magic damage. And then if the person died, backlight. If the person died, during the duration of the ultimate's damage, then um, they would revive for like 45 seconds or something like that. Full health, all your stats, all your items, everything. And you basically control them. But they can only auto attack, right? And so, yeah, I was super broken, right? They had so much stuff like that. Poppy too is also kind of like that no counterplay character before. Poppy used to be able to press her ult on a champion, and only that champion could hurt her for like 8 seconds. It was ridiculous. Um, and so you had a whole bunch of stuff like that. And Urshifu is no different. Urshifu is basically like the no counterplay character for Pokemon. Honestly, something where I'm not too fond of the decision that Pokemon made to even add Urshifu, honestly. Because I don't think the Pokemon community honestly deserves it, right? And the game is really not expanded that much, right? Now you have, second wave of mega, third wave of megas technically, right? Basically the second wave of megas, right? First wave was a little more spread out. This time they're doing it all in one wave, right? With ZA. And so Pokemon really has not even expanded that much to the point where I even feel like, the Pokemon community deserves, this no counterplay type character, right? The Pokemon game has honestly become like this sort of like invisible enemy, right? Archetypally, in society, right? And so it's something where just, kind of go off on a tangent here, right? Something where, I don't necessarily even kind of have a stance when it comes to kind of Urshifu, right? Pun intended, right? I do not think about Urshifu. I've played a bit of Urshifu, right? I enjoy it, right? But generally, when it comes to having a stance on Urshifu, not much, honestly. I'm kind of indifferent when it comes to Urshifu. But to each their own, right? You have this colliding with Urshifu meta, right? And so you have to deal with it, right? And it's fun, right? There's so many answers to Urshifu, and so they just become more powerful. And so, it's not like Pokemon, like League of Legends, right? Where they just put out Gwen and they don't really even care about what they're doing, right? They're just trying to sell this shit to China, right? Pokemon cares a lot about what they're doing, and this team has two answers, two like natural counters, right? With Toxapex and Venusaur, and then you have stuff like Latios, right? So if it's not Scarf Urshifu, Latios can answer with a lot of moves, and it has Electric Terra, right? Calm Mind, right? So it can't not press moves, and Latios is actually a natural counter to Urshifu as well, right? And it can't press moves into Latios, right? Because it's just gonna press Calm Mind and sweep it, right? So very good answer, right? Um, Not a Scarf Urshifu, which is kind of rare. Generally, they just run with Scarf, right? Because now they're just trying to stat check the other Urshifu, right? So generally, the players who are going to be winning are going to be playing Scarf Urshifu. So you're just going to be prepared for that, right? So it is a really good team for pretty much at Kalina Urshifu. So you have set F. And forgive me if you know this is not legal set F. You just take off the Latios and replace it with something else, pretty much, right? There's so much stuff out there, Ruin Moon, Fluttermane, really good stuff that you can put in for set F. You don't want to overload because basically the teams just lose power, especially against Urshifu, right? So many rain combos and stuff like that, right? Like if you just collide into an Urshifu, you don't have natural counters, you're gonna get fucked, right? So yeah. There's so much stuff so that it's not necessarily something where you have to be like, oh, um, I can't play against Urshifu, right? So if Latios isn't legal, forgive me, right? But this is just a team I've been working on, so yeah. So I think I'm just gonna close it there for foreign part of this episode. Um, just wanted to highlight this team. So yeah, you have the Latios, Soldu, it's max speed, max special attack, right? Timid nature, right? And it has Soldu, 20% boost on I think it's 20, it might be 10 on Dragon and Psychic moves, and then you got Luster Purge, which is basically just a really good Psychic move, right? It's better than Psychic. It has better odds. It's 50%, right? So compared to Psychic, which is 20%. Then you have the Haxorus. So it's a Choice Band Haxorus Bug Terra with First Impression, right? Which I like. It has a really nice EV spread. I think it's 184 and 78, if I'm not mistaken, which adds up to 252. Yeah, it does. So it'd be 68. So it's 184, 68. Because it has to be 8 and then 4 after that, right? So 8, 56, 56 is 14, right? So it's 15 speed. And then 184, that's 178, right? So that's it's short too. So it might be 176. So yeah. So yeah, and then it has max attack. So this is just basically like yeah. So you're gonna bring this in, and it has first impression options, right? And then you have X's or two. If you have the Terra with a Terra first impression. So it is a really strong team. I played this on the ladder too, which is set I, and I found the team is just too low power, right? Miraidon, all this stuff would just stat check you. So highly do not recommend to play this team on ladder. Um, but if you're testing or something like that, or maybe you just regionals in your town, and you just want to go play VGC, registration is pretty contained right now, so probably not going to get in unless you're really dedicated to get it in. But yeah, um, so then you have the max attack, match HP. This is just the nature it has. I think I was using it for raids, and then I just didn't change it because it doesn't really matter. So yeah, this is the Dustnor max attack, match HP, and it has fire punch, brick break, shadow punch, and pain splits. So yeah, and that's risk. So it's really just good lead lead partner, right? And then you have the infamous Blaziken. It's an adamant nature Blaziken, max attack, max speed. And then it has speed boost, of course. Sash, right? And then yeah, this is Sprinter, the Blaziken. Then you have as Brick Break, Fire Punch, Swords Dance, Detect. Let's come through. Yep. Um, yeah, and then you get the other Toxic Pex natural Earthshoot counter, right? Merciless Toxic Pex is adamant nature Toxic Pex, max attack, max HP. Baneful Bunker, Poison Jab, Wide Guard, Liquidation, right? So just really good answers, right, to just anything that comes in, right? And then you got the um Venusaur, right? It's a modest nature, max speed, max special attack, Venusaur. Chlorophyll, so it's just weather options, right? So your team's really good into rain, so you carry the Venusaur. So that if they have sun, you have a really good sun option too. And then the Venusaur is just powerful, right? This is black clay. Black has leftovers because Toxapex has black sludge. But yeah, Fire Terra, right? It's got stab moves, and then it has the Earth Power answer. And yeah, Weather Ball, right, for weather options, particularly for the sun, right? So it's just gonna be fast Pokemon on board by a long shot. And yeah, so you know, really strong set F team, right? Set F is a format that's just completely not solved, right? Like these guys are just not testing at set F, right? Colliding with Urshifu is not even close, right? Because it's a lot of bleeding from League of Legends, right? These guys, they pretty much got these counterplay picks, right? So they think they can bring that over and then try to farm Pokemon, and it's just there's no even really successful um VGC events, right? And so it's something where Pokemon has really leaned into um the trading card game as its moneymaker. And so as a result, VGC is just not getting much support, right? The events are great though, right? They're really well regulated. And so it's something where it's pretty unfortunate, right? That people really think they can try to gut Pokemon the way it is. And it's such a headache to try and really collide, pun intended, with the Pokemon community, right? So, play, if you want to play Carlisle Where Food, it's the zeitgeist, right? So you can't really argue with that in the sense that you can just be like, oh, um, I'm just going to start playing Pokemon, and I feel like I have a really good philosophy, and I'm going to be able to really kick ass, right? Pokemon's a lot more complicated than that, compared to League of Legends. League of Legends is a lot more anonymous, right? You can get away with a lot more anonymous crusades compared to Pokemon. That's why, when shit hits the fan, you can't just jump onto the Pokemon ladder, right? The official ladder on the games, right? The games that are live, right? And start wreaking havoc, right? But you can do that in League of Legends, right? Because again, people will basically, download League of Legends, right, on their computer for school, right, and they have more money than they know what to do with, right? So they have the $6,000 PC, right? setup, right? And they're running league max settings, right? With like 2 ping because they live in Chicago, and they're wreaking havoc, right? And they think that's awesome, and it's not, right? It's really predictable, and it's really calculated, right? And it's really, something where basically the League of Legends community, has basically decided to just leave it, right? And let's let it be, right? And teach their own, right? But history will, show, you know, um, these I don't want to, again, right? Um, with TikTok AI stuff like that, you don't want them to, pull anything out of your ass, right? And so yeah, it's something where history will, vindicate, the people who just will, let League of Legends go to the wayside, right? People thinking that, League of Legends shit doesn't stink, right? And they can somehow make a quick buck before, shit the fan. And nothing can be further from the truth, right? You guys are just, you guys are complicit with evil, bottom line, right? I mean, and if you made it this far again, right? Congratulations, right? Honestly, right? And so, it's something where, I don't really think one way or other about, the League of Legends community any way, shape, or form. They're just a bunch of 16-year-olds, right, who just hopped on because of Arcane, right? And now Arcane, just gone to the wayside, right? They try to set records, they basically just threw a bunch of money at some fucking animators and they came up with that Arcane, right? So it's something where, Arcane isn't necessarily even a show that even matters either, right? And so the community that's playing League of Legends right now doesn't matter either, right? Let me know how I can just rip on you more, right? Because you just deserve to be mocked and ridiculed, right? Um, you know, you guys don't matter. Your show that you guys cling on to, like maggots clinging on to a dying corpse, it doesn't matter, right? Nobody watched it. I watched season 1, and then my brother told me that season 2 dropped, and I didn't watch it. Um, none of us watch your show. The show's garbage, right? You should be ashamed of yourselves, quite frankly. You should have taken your money, cashed out, and I don't even know. Done something else, okay? Because your shit stinks, right? And just because you sell it to China doesn't mean it doesn't stink, right? So, yeah, League of Legends community, go to you, right? But if you really want to play games, right, Pokemon is the game to play, right? League of Legends is basically just copy Dota 2, right? And Dota 2 is a copy of Dota, right? And so it's something where, it's no mystery, right? Once it gets solved, it's solved, right? You guys are insane, right? So, insanity is not something that gets tolerated in any way, shape, or form, right? You guys are not doing your job, right? You guys think you guys are shit, and your shit don't, and your shit stinks, right? You guys think your shit doesn't stink, and your shit stinks, right? And so, it's not something that is really up for debate, And so, I'm just gonna leave it there, for this episode. So this has been Mario Gamer Culture, episode 35. Episode 2 of Team Profiles, set F. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you.